114. That's how many men and boys were killed in this abandoned mining shaft in the year of 1856, July 15th. You may have heard of the Seymour colliery explosion, which resulted in 35 widows, 92 children, and several other relatives left with no immediate support. Much like many of these accidents that occurred in mines, this was caused by poor ventilation coupled with a naked flame. Legend has it that till this day, the poor men and children who lost their lives still wander the old abandoned mine, chasing out anyone that dared to enter. These were, of course, just rumors. I say as I lead a group of school students down the abandoned mine turned museum. I've been a tour guide to this museum for about 3 years now, guiding school kids who are often not very well behaved through the mine. I don't get paid very much, but it's a decent job for being a student in university. I'm currently studying to be a veterinarian. However, here I am working with humans rather than animals. I have my mom to thank for that. A friend of hers knows one of the managers of this museum and put in a good word for me. At first, I wanted to decline, but my mother made it very clear that I didn't have a choice in the matter. No son of mine is going to be penniless and begging his mom for money. We're not royalty, remember? We must work for our money, that which I'll remind you we don't have much of. It was annoying, but my mom did have a point. We weren't very well off. It also didn't help that my father left us to start another family several hundred miles away and never offered any type of financial assistance. It had fallen onto my mother to raise 3 children and provide for us. Being the oldest, at 24, it was about time I started working for myself, and so here I am. I just had no idea that it would be this mundane and boring. The same routine over and over again. What helps me get through each day is thinking about the end goal. I'm in my last year and I'm going to be applying to jobs very soon. Probably in the next 5 months or so, after I get my resume in order. This time next year, I'll be working with animals, helping them get better and making much more money than I am now. Perhaps even a few years after that, I could consider retiring my mother and finally paying her back for all that she's done by having her live carefree, not having to worry about bills, her boss, or any responsibilities. I imagine her joining a tennis club. She's always raved about how great she was at that when she was in year 12 and 13. I could have gone pro, I tell you. Right up there with Venus and Serena. That thought brings a smile to my face, but then I'm brought back to reality when one of the school kids asks me to go to the bathroom. This is a mine shaft. There are no bathrooms here, you blinkard. That day, my manager asked me to close up. This just consisted of me making sure the entrance to the grounds which the mine shafts was located at were all locked, cleaning up any mess the kids may have made, and checking the shaft for anything that might have been left behind. I must admit, that's my favorite part of this job. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a well-off student will accidentally lose a few pounds here and there. It happens a lot often than one would think. On this particular day, I was doing my routine check of the mine. The mine runs far and wide. However, we are only allowed access to about half a mile of the mine. The rest is securely boarded up and not to be ventured into under any circumstance. We're told that that portion of the mine has not been reinforced and is mostly untouched since the early 1900s. Once I got to this portion of the mine shaft, I stopped and turned around, ready to head home, feeling a bit disappointed that I hadn't discovered any tips lying about. Right as I turned around, I hear a faint sound. Removing my earbuds, the sound becomes clear and I'm able to recognize it as the sounds of a child crying. it seemed to be coming from the area of the mine shaft which was off limits. My heart immediately drops, thinking that I had gotten too comfortable and hadn't kept a watchful eye on the kids that I had been touring earlier today. Had one of them found a way into the area of the mine shaft I told them not to enter under any circumstance? It sounded like something a delinquent student would do. This would no doubt cost me my job and would bring a lot of bad press to the company. The damage was already done. Maybe I should leave the child and retrieve him in the morning. It served them right. Yet, I found myself turning around and heading to where the crying was emanating from. Sure enough, one of the boards sealing the area off was broken. I poked my head through the opening. Hello? No response. The crying stops. Hello? Hello? I'm coming to get you. If you hear me, stay where you are, I say as I break off another one of the wooden boards and squeeze my way into the other side of the mine. This is precisely why I wanted to work with animals. Over the years, my patience for humans has slowly withered due to idiotic things like this. If it were a dog we were dealing with, a cat, and even a bird, they would have no doubt found their way back and not just whimper in fear. People have come to expect more from humans when in fact, not all of us are that intellectually inclined. Upon making it to the other side, I take note of it being pitch black. There were no lights besides the light emanating from the side of the mine I just came from. It was also really cold. I felt as though I was freezing. I turn on my flash on my smartphone and use it to guide me. The difference between this half of the mine shaft and the one I toured was like night and day. The other half had gift shops, a little cafe, and was very much transformed into a tourist attraction, whereas this part of the mine was strictly rock and wooden beams which acted as its support. To make things worse, there was a fog of dust everywhere, which smelt of moist rocks and dirt. The smell was so strong and pure that it made it hard to breathe at times. I used my shirt to help filtrate some of the air I was breathing, so I wasn't taking in so much of the dust. In addition, it felt extremely claustrophobic. The deeper I went, the smaller the mine seemed to get. This was the last place I ever pictured myself being in my life. And still, there was no sign of the child. Please come out. This isn't funny. You're not supposed to be here. Come with me so I can take you back to your parents. I stood there quietly, waiting for a response. And when I didn't get one, I figured I would just call the authorities and let them deal with the situation. However, I must have been too deep within the mine because I couldn't receive a signal. Great. This is what I get for trying to do good, I say as I turn around and march back in the direction I came from. Suddenly, I hear a sound that drove chills down my spine. It wasn't the sound of a child crying, but rather the sound of something breathing. It had a pattern and cadence to it, deep, jagged. It didn't sound very human. I started to walk faster, but the faster I walked, the louder the breathing became. Finally, I knew why. Whatever it was that was breathing was not behind me, but was somehow in front of me. By the time I realized this, it was too late. I could now see it in front of me. Its pale, smooth skin, its feral white eyes, and its heavy saliva that trickled down from its mouth as it breathed. I was petrified, unable to move a muscle in this moment of fear. However, this monster never attacked me. Instead, it kept fidgeting its head from side to side. It was listening. I surmised that its eyes were white because it was blind. I slowly backed away, making sure not to make any noise, but of course, in my moment of fear, I had forgotten to keep my shirt over my nose. I was now smelling something foul and rotten. I placed my shirt over my nose once more, but it was far too late. The smell was coming from the creature. If I were to guess, it had no grasp of the concept of a bath. That much was evident. I involuntarily cough, and in that instant, the creature looks directly at me and charges. I turn around and run as fast as I can. I was not much of a runner, but today I summoned my inner Usain Bolt and flew down the shaft, slowly but surely, making good distance between me and the creature. Further along the mine, it divides into 3 different paths I could take. I stop and listen, hearing more breathing coming from one of the 3 paths. The creature behind me was getting closer, and yet I couldn't decide which path to take. There were more than just one. This is until a figure appears out of the far right path. It was human. "Follow me if you want to live." Without asking any questions, I do just that. We run even further into the mine and make another turn into an opening of the mine. "Turn off your light. The other creatures may sense it." I do as I'm told and stand in silence until I finally hear the creature chasing us run past us. Several minutes pass until I feel brave enough to speak again. "Hello? Thank you for your help." A faint glow started to appear within the pitch-black darkness of the mine. What started off as one glow quickly grew in number until they started to take form. Individually, each of these glowing lights took the form of a human. They were all shirtless, wore some variation of hard hat. Some were old, but most of them were young. Some even looked to be children. In this moment, I realized what I was witnessing. The thought of it was asinine, and when I said it out loud, it sounded even more absurd. "You are the 114 coal miners that died on July 15th, 1856, are you not?" "Yes, we are. We haven't seen a living being in such a long time. We're trapped here, along with the creatures that led us to our demise." I was speechless, shocked. Words were unable to exit my mouth. I could only look and study them. I was seeing the ghosts of the dead coal miners from so many hundreds of years ago. How was this possible? After hearing a screech in the far distance, I'm finally able to ask the miners a question. "You're telling me that those things out there were responsible for what happened?" "Yes. We had dug into an area of the mine which extended for miles, giving us access to endless supply of coal. However, it was also home to the creatures you are running from, and even more creatures you have yet to meet. One of our crew members lit a flame to scare them away, and due to our poor ventilation, the flames made contact with the fumes and collapsed portions of the mine. Those of us that weren't crushed to death were eaten alive by the creatures." The coal miner steps closer to me. The air around me becomes even colder, and I begin to shiver. "You must destroy this cursed mine shaft, free us from our prison, and kill the creatures within it before they one day build the courage to exit the mine shaft and enter the outside world." "Yes, but how would I do that?" I asked. The man points to an area where many of the miners began to circle and illuminate, revealing sticks of dynamite. "Take as many as you can and blow this damn mine shaft to hell." I walked towards the dynamite and picked up several of them. Over the next 30 minutes, I carefully placed a trail of dynamites from deep within the mine till I got to the boarded up area. The miners helped to guide me and notified me of when and where to hide from the creatures when they got close. Squeezing my way through the other side of the mine, I ran to my boss's office and grabbed a lighter from his drawer. He was an avid smoker, and for once in my life, I was happy he was. I rushed back into the other side of the mine and got ready to light the wick which was connected to the stick of dynamite. The coal miners told me that upon doing so, I would have about 10 seconds before the dynamite detonated, and the entire mine came crashing down, including the museum portion. All the coal miners gathered and issued their thanks as I lit the dynamite. I ran and made my way out of the mine, not looking back as I heard and felt the mine erupt and crumble. We used an old analog surveillance system, so luckily none of the security footage was in the cloud, but rather it went down with the museum. The next day, I got a call from my manager telling me that the mine had collapsed and that they were not likely to try and excavate it due to it not being worth the money. The truth about what happened to the 114 men and boys that died in that mine might never be told, but their souls are free now, and they're able to reunite with their loved ones.